South Boston, where survival wasn't taught in classrooms. It was earned in blood on cracked pavement and broken knuckles. Young Mike Donovan learned one brutal truth before he could shave. Strike first, or you don't strike at all. His father broke his back hauling cargo on freezing docks. His brother? He pounded faces in the Golden Gloves, night after night. And Mikey became something else entirely. By 17 years old, he'd survived over 30 street fights, not because he was the biggest or the strongest, but because he understood something most men never learn. Hesitation kills. Action saves lives. Then came December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor, and everything changed. Donovan walked into that Army Air Force's recruiting station with fire in his eyes. They took one look at his build and said, "Ground crew, you'll be perfect." But Mike, he wasn't having it. "Gunnery school," he demanded. "Put me in the sky or I'm walking out that door." They tried to break him in training, called him reckless, told him he was too aggressive, too willing to expose himself to enemy fire. His instructors shook their heads and said he'd never make it. But Donovan had an answer that silenced every critic. Dead gunners don't shoot back. Live ones do. Which one do you want in your plane? He didn't just graduate, he dominated. Not because his aim was perfect, but because his speed was unmatched. While other gunners waited for targets to enter range, Donovan hunted them down like prey. He saw the enemy before they saw him. And that made all the difference. March 1944, Framlingham, England, cold, gray, deadly. Donovan was assigned to the 391st Bombardment Group, and his new home was AB-17 with a reputation darker than midnight. Hell's Fury. 3 missions and 2 catastrophic encounters with enemy fighters, and a tailgunner who literally begged, to be transferred after barely surviving. That cursed position. Most men ran from it. Donovan? He walked straight toward it without blinking. Captain James Whitmore pulled him aside, voice heavy with warning. "Son, tailgunners have a 38% casualty rate. You understand what that means?" Donovan just smiled cold and calm. "Then I've got 62% odds of living. I'll take them because I shoot first." His first mission. Schweinfurt, a ball-bearing factory deep in enemy territory. The sky turned into a nightmare of flak and screaming metal. But when German fighters swarmed, Donovan did something nobody expected. He didn't wait for them to attack. He opened fire while they were still forming up, 2,000 yards out, forcing them to scatter before they could even begin their assault runs. One fighter went down spinning. 2 more limped away trailing smoke. But what shocked his entire crew wasn't the kills, it was the strategy. Donovan had just rewritten the rulebook mid-flight. Wasting 20 rounds at extreme range to break up an entire formation? Genius. The math was simple and brutal. Better to burn ammunition than bury 9 men. By the next mission, Donovan evolved. When enemy fighters lined up behind Hell's Fury, he ignored the lead attacker completely. Instead, he gunned down the wingman, the predictable one, the one who never saw it coming. Chaos erupted instantly. The formation shattered. The attack never happened. His crew chief stormed up after landing, face red with anger. "You used 80% of your ammunition." 80%. Donovan's response was ice cold. "And we didn't get hit." Silence. The crew chief had no answer for that. Back in the barracks, while other gunners drank and played cards, Donovan studied German fighter tactics, attack patterns, timing, angles, coordination. He learned that the Luftwaffe relied on precision, formations approaching from specific vectors with clockwork timing. American gunners were trained to defend, to react, to wait. That gave the enemy total control. But Donovan saw the fatal flaw. If he fired first, if he seized the initiative, he could turn hunters into prey. He could make the enemy react to him. March 6, 1944, a date that would be burned into history. Hell's Fury joined one of the largest bombing raids of the entire war. Destination: an aircraft factory in Augsburg, Germany. Over 800 bombers filled the sky. Intelligence predicted 2,500 German fighters would rise to meet them. Command expected devastating losses. It was going to be a massacre. Donovan approached Captain Whitmore with a request that sounded insane. "Sir, let me test something. Let me open fire before they even begin their attack." Whitmore stared at him, jaw tight, weighing the risk. Finally, he nodded. "You get one shot to prove this works. You get us shredded. You're off that gun forever." They crossed into German airspace at 8:24 a.m. The sky was clear, deceptively peaceful. Then, 9:19 a.m. 12 fighters appeared at 6 o'clock high, closing fast. Most gunners would wait, calculate, prepare. Not Donovan. At 2,000 yards, twice the recommended engagement distance, he opened fire. Most rounds screamed past their targets into empty sky. But the effect? Immediate, devastating, psychological. The German formation broke apart instantly before they could even begin their dive. Discipline shattered. Coordination gone. One veteran pilot didn't flinch, though. He kept coming cold, focused, deadly. Donovan let him close the distance, then unleashed 200 rounds in a brutal storm of lead that tore the fighter into metal confetti. The remaining fighters regrouped, approached from multiple angles, 6 from the rear, 5 from the left. Most gunners would panic, try to cover everything, fail at all of it. Not Donovan. He made a choice. He focused every ounce of firepower on the 6 to his rear and trusted the waist gunners to handle the rest. In seconds, 3 more fighters disintegrated. The others fled. 15 minutes later, 18 more German fighters returned. This time, Hell's Fury was surrounded. Every angle, every approach vector. Death closing in from all sides. The other gun positions engaged frantically. But Donovan? He stayed calm, ice in his veins, and focused on the most direct threat. He opened fire from maximum range. 1 fighter shredded, then 2, then 3, all before they reached their firing positions. 7 seconds later, 2 more went down. The rest broke off again, confusion spreading through their ranks. By now, Donovan had only 400 rounds remaining. Then the largest wave yet appeared on the horizon. 36 fresh fighters joined the 12 already circling. 48 aircraft now surrounded Hell's Fury like wolves around wounded prey. The bomber had drifted from formation. No fighter escorts nearby. It was completely alone. With only 380 rounds left, Donovan made a request that bordered on suicide. "Sir, permission to attack them before they can strike." Whitmore's voice crackled back, heavy with resignation and trust. "Do it." As the fighters formed up for their final coordinated assault, Donovan didn't target individual planes. He did something far more brilliant. He aimed for the space where coordination lived, the center of their formation, and dumped 200 rounds into it. The effect was catastrophic. 1 plane caught fire. 2 collided in a fireball. The entire enemy wave scattered into chaos, discipline obliterated, tactics abandoned. But Donovan knew it was temporary. 90 seconds later, they returned. No formation, no tactics, just raw, unbridled fury. 12 fighters came straight at Hell's Fury from behind. Donovan didn't panic. He ignored the closest threats and focused on the psychological center, the part of the swarm where fear could spread like wildfire. He hit 3 fighters in rapid succession. 1 exploded in a brilliant orange fireball. 2 fled trailing black smoke. As the remaining fighters closed to point-blank range, Donovan dropped 2 more with mechanical precision. At 100 yards, the last fighters peeled away. Donovan tracked 1 more, pulled the trigger, and heard the worst sound a gunner can hear. Click. Empty. "Dry on all guns," he called over the radio, voice steady despite the adrenaline. The rest of the crew checked in. Minor damage, everyone alive, but the tail was now completely unarmed. And the German pilots? They knew it. They could see it. They formed up again for one final approach. But as they closed in, Donovan did something legendary. He tracked the lead fighter with cold, mechanical precision. His guns empty but his movements flawless. The German pilots saw those barrels locked directly on him and flinched. He turned away. The rest followed. The illusion of firepower born from reputation and psychological dominance drove them off. Fear had become a weapon. Hell's Fury completed its bombing run. Target destroyed. On the flight home, German fighters kept their distance. Radio intercepts later revealed why. Word had spread through Luftwaffe channels like wildfire. One B-17 Tailgunner, 12 fighters destroyed in a single mission. That Tailgunner had become a myth, a ghost story whispered in fear. Hell's Fury touched down at Framlingham at 4:47 p.m. Ground crews swarmed the aircraft and counted 47 bullet holes, 13 cannon strikes, a damaged rudder, but the plane flew. Murphy, the crew chief, found every ammunition box empty. "You used everything," he said, voice filled with awe. Donovan just nodded. "Had to. Didn't have enough to waste any." Final tally: 12 confirmed kills, 4 probables, 3 damaged. 4 minutes of sustained combat that rewrote history. The news spread like wildfire through the base. By the next morning, gunners from every squadron begged to know Donovan's tactics. By afternoon, Air Force headquarters sent representatives. By evening, General Frederick Anderson arrived in person. He asked one question: "Can you teach this?" Donovan's answer was simple: "Yes, but only to men with the right mindset. Men who see danger and run toward it." Anderson authorized a special training unit immediately. Donovan's combat days ended that week. He began teaching what would become known throughout the Air Force as the Donovan Doctrine. Its principles were revolutionary yet simple: attack during the enemy's formation phase, exploit vulnerability before it becomes strength, intimidate early, and often concentrate fire ruthlessly, and accept calculated risk. Defensive tactics cost lives. Aggressive tactics save bombers. At first the doctrine was mocked, called too risky, too wasteful, too radical, but results speak louder than criticism. Tailgunner casualties dropped from 38% to 23% in just 3 months. German attack completion rates fell by nearly half. Soon, Luftwaffe commanders began warning their pilots to avoid formations with aggressive defensive fire. Donovan personally trained 300 gunners. His doctrine evolved as his students added their own innovations. One student survived 27 missions without his bomber taking damage. Another downed 16 fighters in just 4 missions. By war's end, Donovan's trainees accounted for 43% of all tailgunner kills in the entire European theater. The Luftwaffe issued official warnings. If you see sustained fire at extreme range, break off immediately. Donovan never flew another combat mission. After the war, he returned to Boston, built houses, raised a family, never gave interviews. When asked about the war, he'd say the same 3 words every time: "Just did my job." But 300 other men did theirs too, and they never forgot the man who taught them to survive. In 1972, one of his former students said something that captured everything. "Mike didn't teach us to survive by hiding. He taught us to make the enemy too scared to attack." Donovan died in 1998. His obituary in the Boston Globe barely mentioned the war. No medals displayed. No 21-gun salute. Just a quiet burial. But the night before, a dozen old gunners raised glasses in his honor. One of them, Bailey, spoke the final words that needed to be said. He didn't just kill 12 fighters. He saved 12,000 lives. And the doctrine he left behind? It still lives today. Modern gunners, fighter pilots, missile defense systems, every one of them follows a version of Donovan's principle. Fire first. Intimidate hard. Never let the enemy dictate the terms. In 4 minutes over Germany, one man from South Boston rewrote the rules of aerial combat forever. Because survival doesn't come from hiding behind armor. It comes from making your enemy too scared to fight.